Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we're here with episode 74. It's Friday, July 25th, and we've got another really solid action-packed weekend coming up across combat sports. Starting with tonight, OTX 15, which I'm going to be at, so hopefully I'll be able to be live tweeting from there, and that should be a lot of fun with Elijah Pierce headlining. Other than that, tomorrow, Saturday, we've got four big events, two during the day, two at night. Really, really fun lineup of fights. We're going to go through all of it. Before we get to that, we're going to talk about some breaking news. So earlier this week, Dana White officially announced what is headlining UFC 320 and 321. At 320, it's going to be the rematch. October 4th in Las Vegas, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira 2. This is the fight to make, I think. You could go Ankalaev Prohaska, but I think the year he just graduated, or just got his degree, I'd rather see Pereira get his rematch right now because he is just that big star. And honestly, he was one of the longer reigning champs in the UFC right now. He only had a few defenses, but still, he had way more than anybody else. So I'm fine with them doing the rematch. It took a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I'm looking forward to that a lot. And I'm curious to see if anything different will happen because it did kind of seem like, you could have expected that to happen in that fight. And it's kind of hard to imagine it going another way unless, I don't know, Pereira lands something on him. Co-main event, they're going to have Merab Dvalishvili versus Cory Sandhagen. So this is going to be Merab's third title defense of 2025. He is on an absolutely insane run. He is so active, and he's proven to be one of the most fun and exciting champs um, we have right now. Really, he had a lot of slack for being boring, at least in the cage. I think he's kind of turned that around with the last two fights, both being really, really exciting. And he's also getting a lot of fan base because he's dominating everybody in the division and he keeps on fighting. He's not being inactive. He's not fighting every other 8 months or stuff. He's going to have fought three times within like 9 months. He's crazy. He's an absolute madman. And I mean, hey, you know what? Cory does deserve the title shot, but I don't see this going any differently than anybody else. I still think that Merab dominates him. It's just how Merab is. He's literally a machine. But then 321 in Abu Dhabi, just a few weeks later on October 25th, we're going to have Tom Aspinall finally getting his UFC heavyweight title fight where he's already the champion, but he was upgraded. He's going to be fighting Ciryl Gane, who did beat Volkov in the Eliminator, even though a lot of people, including myself, aren't sure about that decision. He is the number one contender, and he's honestly probably the biggest name for Aspinall to fight right now that's not Jones or Ngannou. So I'm very, very much down with this. We knew this was happening, but we're also going to have on that card Volkov getting another title shot in a way, and then a number one contender fight against Jailton Almeida. So that's a really awesome fight. Um, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I think it's really smart of them to put that on the same card because you want to grow Aspinall as this big heavyweight star, and people are going to know, well, who's he fighting next? I got it for you right here, winner of this fight. You're also going to have Rakic versus Mirzakhanov, a nice fight at light heavyweight. Ikram Askarov versus Park, Maxim Raposo. So you got some fights added to that card. And they also loaded out the Noche UFC card with some fun fights on there. Suarez Lemos, Garcia Gordon, Charas Costa, Pennington Dumont. So got a lot of fun stuff coming up with UFC over the next couple months. And yeah, I'm just happy we got these announcements out of the way because we were desperately needing to know what was going to be headlining these next few pay-per-views. But moving on from there, we're going to hop into the fights that are coming up this weekend. Speaking of UFC, we're going to stick hot on that with UFC Abu Dhabi, headlined by Robert Whittaker's return against Reinier de Ridder. RDR coming off a big knockout over Bo Nickal earlier this year in a huge upset. Whittaker has not fought since last year's loss to Hamzat Chimaev in the same arena, in the same city. So, as for who wins this fight, you know, I want to side with Whittaker because I feel like he does have that experience, but I think that we're very much going to see two things happen here. I think RDR may be undefeated in the UFC, and I think that we'll see that streak continue, and we'll just be like, oh, wow, this guy really is a really solid contender. Should he be able to take care of Whittaker, then it's going to be like, wow, and we're also going to be like, okay, well, Whittaker maybe is on his decline, two losses in a row. Or Whittaker's going to remind everyone, no, I'm still that guy. I couldn't beat Hamza, but I'm still that guy. So I don't know how this one goes, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'll pick Whittaker because I'm a big fan of his, but I can very much see it going the other way. Co-main event, you got Piotr Yan versus Marcus McGee. It's kind of a stay busy fight for Yan. Not that McGee isn't solid. He's ranked number 12 in the bantamweight division, but Yan is honestly probably going to get the next title shot. Um, and they don't really have anybody up there for him to fight at the moment. I really think that he could have fought Umar, but it's whatever. He's fighting McGee instead, and I definitely think that he wins that. Then you've got Shara Bullet against Marc-Andre Barriault. That's a fantastic middleweight fight. I want to side with Shara, but you never know, man. He did not look great last time, and Barriault is definitely a live dog in that, so I'm excited for that fight. Asu Amabayev returns against Jose Ochoa. That's a good one. Nikita Krylov, Bogdan Guskov. Really solid main card. Interestingly enough, we have Bryce Mitchell's bantamweight debut against Sayed Nurmagomedov, which is another really good fight, and that's on the prelims. I feel like that could have just been thrown onto the main card, but it's whatever. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a really, really fun night of fights. Every fight on this card I have some interest in, and yeah, so it should be good. You also have the top 10 matchup between Amanda Hebos and Tabitha Ritchie. The strawweight division on those undercards, Damon Blackshear, Davy Grant, Muslim Salikov, Carlos Leal. So it's going to be a really nice UFC card, and I'm looking forward to it. Also on tap for Saturday, Xander Zayas finally gets his world title shot against Jorge Garcia Perez. So if you remember correctly, Zayas was ordered to fight Sebastian Fundora. Fundora decided to go with the Tim Tszyu rematch instead for the WBC belt, and that would mean that he'd have to vacate his WBO, so he did that, and Zayas is still going to get that shot. He's just now fighting Jorge Garcia. Garcia is coming off of a big upset over Charles Conwell, which was a great fight that he was able to nick out in the on the scorecard. So this is a really good fight. It's definitely Zayas' toughest test by far, and I think that Garcia is definitely worthy of a title shot. I do see Zayas winning this fight. He should be able to, but he's getting thrown into the deep waters here for the first time, and we're going to have to see if he can float. I think he can. I do think he's one of these young boxing stars that's really going to, carry the torch for a long time, and he's looking to become that guy for Puerto Rico. So, I really do want to put my faith in him, and I'm picking him to win this fight, and I think that he does win this fight, but it's going to be a long night. This is the final top rank show on ESPN, which is crazy, and we don't know what is going to happen after. They still don't have a broadcast deal, so it's getting a little bit dicey there. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm looking forward to seeing what Garcia brings, and Zayas as well, but I'm picking Zayas to win this one, more likely by decision, though. Co-main event, you got Bruce Carrington getting his interim world title shot with the WBC against Mateus Heita. Again, I see Carrington winning this fight. It is probably his toughest test in Heita. I'm not too familiar with him, but he's 14-0. So it's going to be tough. Should Carrington win this, he's going to be mandatory for that belt against Stephen Fulton, who, hey, if Fulton goes up to Ashaki Foster and fights him at 130, there's a good chance that the winner of this could just end up getting upgraded to full champion. So this is very, very serious, and I think Bruce Carrington is absolutely the goods, and I think that Shushu gets the win, maybe even inside the distance here. I really do think that he's that good. Jan Santana returns against Aaron Alameda in the 10-round bout. Rohan Polanco is back against Quinton Randall. He's a really, really solid fighter at welterweight. I honestly can see him getting a very much in vain top-rank title fight against Brian Norman Jr. potentially, but we'll see. Steven Nafaro versus Christopher Rios is actually a solid fight at super flyweight. Emiliano Vargas is back. They've got the return of Juan Mita Lopez de Jesus. Julius Bio makes his debut. This is a really, really solid top-ranked card. Bakhmudir Jalalov was meant to fight on it. That is no longer the case as he got injured or sick or something, and this happens a lot with his career, so they definitely need to, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but he just has really bad luck, it seems. And I don't know, man, but yeah, hopefully they can get his career kind of back on track. I don't want to say back on track like it's going downhill, but I just mean like he hasn't had his last performance was not that great. He had a fight before that got canceled, then this fight gets canceled. 2025 has just not been a great year for him, and I feel like by now he's like 15-0. He should be able to get in there with the big dogs, and we're not seeing that yet. We also have the return of the GOAT this weekend. Claressa Shields takes on Lanny Daniels for the undisputed heavyweight championship. Lanny Daniels is the IBF champion, I think, with the IBF. So I mean, hey, I'm okay with this fight. She's still fighting another world champion, but I just kind of feel like after this, I know it's apparently her last deal with Dimitri Salita, which is her last fight on her deal, which is good because she needs to get with somebody like MVP who can give her big fights. And after this, I want to see her fight Shadeja Green or fight Franchon Cruz Dessert. I don't really know who it is, but I just kind of want to see her get away from this heavyweight mix. Even though she's a lot more fun at heavyweight and has a lot more power, the names just aren't there, and the names are at 160 or 168. So we'll see. You also have some of the other fighters there. Women's fighter Samantha Worthington versus Victoire Pitou. I believe that's a interim title fight with the WBA, and then Caroline Vare versus Alicia Boderos, I think, is a WBC eliminator. So some kind of world title stakes. You also have the return of Tony Harrison. He just signed with Salida. I'm not sure how much he has left, but he's going to be fighting Edward Diaz, who's 15-6. So we'll see what goes down there. You got guys like Bryce Taylor, Devell Smith, Leon Lawson III. So some okay Salida prospects on the card. I'm curious if they're going to have any prelims broadcast. I doubt it, but they have enough fights on this card. They have like 11 or so fights. So they really should, but we'll see what they do. A fight that most people, including myself, are very much looking forward to and could really steal the show this weekend in Bournemouth is Ryan Garner versus Reece Bellotti. 50-50 super featherweight fight for the British, Commonwealth, and European titles. I really, really like this fight, as does everybody and their mom. It's a great fight. Matchroom versus Queensberry as well. As for what happens, I have to side with Ryan Garner. Even though Reece Bellotti's been on an absolute tear recently, and he's just been in really good form and beating up all these young prospects, I kind of just feel like, I don't know, man. I think Garner really is a very, very solid contender. And if he wins this, he can kind of push himself to a higher elite. I don't know, man. I do have to side with the younger undefeated guy here, and I do think that that's going to end up winning him the fight. I don't know if I want to say he stops him or anything, but I do think that Garner's going to take this one, and he is the favorite. So, but with that being said, it's still a phenomenal fight, and regardless who wins, we know it's going to be great. It's going to be a fantastic watch. Alois Jr. returns against Elizoro. Not really mad at this matchmaking at all. Elizoro was honestly in Alois' position a year or two ago, and then he got knocked out by Jaya Pataya, then knocked out by Chef Clark, and now he's becoming a bit of a gatekeeper, it seems. But hey, you know what? If he can somehow beat Alois, then he's back on track. I think Alois is really solid. I don't know if he goes above British level, but I definitely will see him mix in with the likes of Vidal Riley and such, or Isaac Chamberlain, you know? So I do think that he's in that domestic scene. I think he's really fun. He's a very explosive fighter, so him and Elzor should make to be a lot of fun. Other than that, not a lot going on this card. You have Carl Fail versus Amir Abu Baker. So they're both undefeated. I think they're fighting for like some kind of area title. So that should be okay. Other than that, every other fight is 6 rounds or less. A lot of just Queensberry prospects. Taylor Bevan is a matchroom prospect, and he's on the show. And so I'm excited to see him. He's 4-0 with 4 knockouts. But other than that, not really anybody too much of note. And yeah, we'll just see how this card ends up playing out. But it should be decent. Moving on from there, we're going to go ahead and talk about the fight I'm going to tonight, Elijah Pierce versus Michael Das Marinas for the WBO, International Featherweight Championship. This is Elijah Pierce's first fight at featherweight, as well as his first fight in almost a year. I'm not sure why he's been so active, but hey, I'm glad that he's finally returning. Das Marinas is a solid opponent. I could be wrong, but I think that he is a former world title challenger. Maybe I'm crazy. He fought Inoue in 2021 and got knocked out in 3 rounds. So hey, and everybody does that. I mean, Elijah Pierce himself is chasing an Inoue fight, kind of. I don't think he's anywhere close to that. Maybe he can work his way closer to a world title shot, but that's still a big ask. I don't think that he's that great, if I'm being honest. I think he's fun. I think he's a solid contender, but I don't know if I ever see him becoming a champion. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun main event. I obviously have Elijah Pierce winning this fight. He's had some dicey moments in his last few fights. O'Shea Jones returns, defending her IBF and IBO titles at middleweight against Ella Carranza. That's a decent fight. Carranza is 11-1. Jones is 8-0. Jones, I feel like she kind of hopped into world title status very quickly, and she did beat Emma Kozin, but it was close, man. It was really, really close. It wasn't Emma Kozin. I got confused. It was Femke Hermans that she fought, and she narrowly beat. But she's a really, really good fighter, and I'm looking forward to seeing that fight. You also have a fantastic super featherweight 50-50 between Haven Brady Jr. and DeMichael Harris. That should be a lot of fun. I want to edge it to Haven Brady, but it's a really, really solid fight. OTX is doing this new thing called Pink Slips, where it's going to be 2 undefeated prospects going at each other, and the winner gets an OTX fight immediately after. The loser gets kicked off. So it's going to be Morgan Griggy and Maximus Garland, both 8-0 over 6 rounds. That's going to be fireworks. Nathan Lugo versus Rashad McWilliams. Both of them are 4-0, fighting over 6 rounds. It's going to be a really solid night of fights, 8 fights in total. And yeah, I'm heading out to Atlanta pretty soon to watch that one. I'm very excited for it. And then the only other show we have this weekend is BKFC Philly. They're making their return there. It's going to be headlined by Dustin Page versus Ryan Peterson. That's a pretty solid fight, I think. Co-main event is Rosalinda Rodriguez versus Gabrielle Roman, and you've also got Johnny Garbarino returning the Cannoli Man against Eric Lopez, so he's becoming a bit of a Philly BKFC favorite, and yeah, he's always a lot of fun. He got another Cannoli slapping at the weigh-in I saw. I think only like 9 fights on this card now, so should be a pretty short one, but hey, BKFC is always a lot of fun. Moving on from there, we actually had a fight last night, on Thursday night. That was between uh, Manny Flores, I almost said Grant, but Manny Flores and Jorge Chavez. And that was an interesting one. I thought the Jorge Chavez won that fight. I had it 96-94, so I don't think it was super one-sided, but I think that those middle rounds, I think Manny had 1 or 2 rounds in the beginning, and then I think that he got the last 2 rounds. Other than that, all the middle rounds I gave to Chavez. I thought that he looked really good. I think that he outboxed him very well. It only got dicey when Manny could get close enough to him and he could unload a lot and make it more of a dogfight. And he was accusing Jorge afterwards of doing the Tom and Jerry stuff. I don't think that he was running at all. I think he was just boxing around. It was a good fight, but it ended up being scored a draw, which I just don't really agree with. I don't think it's out of this world, but it does definitely kind of scream, Manny getting a little bit of help from the judges to stay back on track because, let's be honest, Golden Boy probably wanted him to win this fight. He is a little bit of the bigger name. These are both still up-and-coming fighters, and that's why I love that Golden Boy put them against each other, but I think Jorge Chavez won that fight. I do believe they're going to do a rematch next. They both said that they want it. It really feels like a lesser version of Rocha and Curiel, except we never got the rematch there. Maybe we will one day, but yeah, hopefully they run this one back with these guys, and I'd be totally fine with that headlining another Golden Boy fight night or being on a larger like arena card. Co-main event there, you had Jordan Panthan, who actually lost to Farid Ngoga. I'm not gonna lie, I actually had Panthan narrowly winning that fight. That was one where it was a lot of fun, but it was very hard to score. Every round you could lean to the other guy, so I'm not mad at that decision. But I personally had Panthan winning, but it was very close. But that was a great fight. Grant Flores got a second round stoppage. His opponent just didn't want to be in there with him. Caden Griffiths got a fourth round knockout. He's a really, really fun prospect, and he's 6-0 with 6 knockouts now. You had Leonardo Sanchez getting a fourth round knockout in a very, very fun action packed fight with Abraham Valdez. And then Fabian Guzman had his first decision win over Brian Arguay. So another really solid Golden Boy Fight Night card, and Oscar De La Hoya calls them his developmental shows because it's just all prospects and they're developing them. But hey, you have some decent fights. The main and co-main event were both 10-round fights for WBA regional titles with 50-50 fights in the matchmaking and in the actual fight delivered. And yeah, they're really solid shows, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. Golden Boy's next event will be next Saturday in Chicago, where that will be Oscar Duarte taking on Kenneth Sims in another really well-matched Golden Boy versus Golden Boy fight. And it was announced that on that card, we're going to be getting Regis Prograis versus Joseph Diaz Jr. in the co-main event. As for my thoughts on that, I'm glad to see Prograis coming back because he hasn't fought in almost 2 years now. But I really think that somebody needs to make Jojo Diaz retire. He's lost so many of his last few fights, and coming in against Prograis, even though Prograis is kind of a little bit washed, Jojo is so washed, I don't think there's any chance that he can beat Regis Prograis. I think they honestly should really both be retiring, but certainly Jojo Diaz should retire, and this is, I'm surprised that he's still fighting, and I don't know, I just really hope that somebody can tell him, yo, dude, you got to hang him up. We also got Tristan Kalkruth returning on that undercard. Hopefully he's in with a good opponent because he's got some proving to do. Joshua Edwards returned, very fun heavyweight prospect they have. Yair Gallardo, Gael Cabrera, and that's all they've got on the list right now. They only announced their undercards like a week and a half out, and they don't have a ton of fighters on it, but the ones they do should be a fun show. Moving on from there, though, we've got a ton of other news to talk about. So the Ollie Act is potentially getting amended in Congress. It's being discussed now. Now the Ollie Act essentially makes it so that no boxing, a boxing promotion cannot have its own belts in the same way that the UFC does, and that's done to protect the fighters. Watch the Ali Act, so that you don't have a promoter being in charge of all the money and who gets to fight who. It's a sanctioning, it's an organized governing body. Um, Unfortunately, the governing bodies, there's too many of them, and they don't work as well as the UFC model works. So, and there's obviously Turkey wanted to do it. I'm fine with it, but I really worry about if the fighters are going to get screwed over in all of this and there being a boxing league because there's so many more boxers than there are MMA fighters. And I don't know, but I'd rather I don't really know what side of the fence I sit on. This is a very controversial topic. It's like, well, do we want to have a unified boxing league or do we want to protect the fighters and make sure that we have a more governed body? And, it's a question because I want to make sure the fighters get taken care of, but I also want to see the fights happen. And right now we're seeing the fights happen and there's no governing body. I honestly think boxing is in a fine spot. For years, I've said we need a governing body, but where it's at right now, I don't know if we really need one. Especially if it means amending the Ali Act to making it the very thing the Ali Act has made to stop. So I don't know about this, but it's very controversial. The WBO have officially ordered Oleksandr Usyk versus Joseph Parker for their and all the heavyweight titles. Riyadh Season and Sella. The Ring magazine learned that Riyadh Season and Sella are not interested in making this fight because that is news when a promotion says we're not interested in making that fight because everybody asked. But no, that is interesting. I hate all this. Ring magazine has learned like, dude, this is just Turkey's second Twitter account, but apparently he doesn't want to make that fight. I think he wants to make Usyk versus Atama, which I really do not have interest in seeing right now. I think that Turkey is very much somebody who's like, let's see the fights happen right now, as opposed to somebody like Frank Warren, who's we're going to take our time building him up properly and making sure that when that fight happens, it's in our favor. Because right now it's not in Atama's favor. I think Usyk Parker is the only fight at heavyweight I have any interest in seeing right now for the belt. Seriously, that is the fight. And it's honestly very disappointing to see that Turkey isn't interested. However, Usyk Dubois 2 happened without Turkey being a promoter for it. I do think that he had some financial backing, which is why it was a Wembley fight. But Frank Warren can put this fight on and not do Wembley Stadium and just have a crappy undercard. I don't care. Whatever he has to do to cut costs. We need this fight to happen, and Parker deserves it. There's a possibility that Usyk decides not to fight Parker, and in which case Parker would fight somebody for the vacant. I saw somebody point out do Usyk versus Kabayel for the rest of them, and Parker versus Atama. That's a fine plan, but the thing is, one, you're rushing Atama again, and two, Kabayel is even less of a financially big opponent for Parker to fight. That's why Usyk and them want to fight Fury a third time or Asia, even though there's no point in that because it's the big money fight, and that's not what Parker is. But I still think it's a decent enough money fight, and I think that it's one that we need to see, and he deserves it. So, building off the story of Daniel Dubois having a pre-fight party, there's rumors that he had to walk to Wembley Stadium, which I'm very confused as to what this means. I think it was something where like he and his dad drove there, but then his dad had to drop him off somewhat far away so his dad could go park. So Dubois ended up having to walk a decent bit. It's just so weird. That whole situation is so bizarre. And you know that Daniel Dubois is just full of regrets right now. There was no way that Dubois was going to win that fight, realistically. But it would have probably helped him feel a lot better in the ring had he been there a few hours before and prepared and not had all this other crap going on and distracting him. It's just really unfortunate, and it's very disappointing from his team who kind of screwed him over here, honestly. And yeah, I don't know how much stock I put into this story, but the party stuff is pretty crazy. It is very, very crazy, and I'm curious what they do next with Daniel Dubois. We haven't really talked about that. Does he hop right back into a 50-50 fight? Does he do a little bit of rebuilding? I don't know. I really don't know. Honestly, man, I can see them doing Derek Chisora because Chisora is still maybe a top 15 heavyweight right now. Dubois is coming off a loss. It's a big fight for Chisora's final fight. He loses, but I can see them doing that one, but who knows? In other news, Matchroom Boxing have officially announced the rematch between Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan. It's going to be September 13th at Windsor Park with the IBF World Welterweight Championship on the line. Man, I cannot wait for this. That first fight was so controversial. I mean, Paddy Donovan dominated him, but he had a lot of, what was he, like headbutts, low blows, just a ton of like stuff that he wasn't intentionally doing, but just had a lot of stuff going wrong for him and a lot of dirty moves. And the ref was taking points from him. And then he hits Crocker and he drops him. and then he goes after him again, and he hits him after the bell. And Crocker does not meet the count, and Patty loses by disqualification. And listen, I understand the rules, so you can't even really say that the ref is wrong there. It just sucks because that was a title eliminator. Crocker got the became mandatory, but the IBF, of course, immediately ordered a rematch because he doesn't deserve the title shot off of that, whether he won or lost. And Patty Donovan is really looking for his revenge here. So it's a very, very good fight. Second time around, it's so much bigger. They packed out the SSC Arena. This time they're doing like an 20,000 seat stadium. So not the biggest stadium, but it'll still be cool to have that fight outdoors. I'm very much looking forward to this one. They also announced the undercard today, and it's looking pretty solid, I won't lie. You've got Ishmael Davis versus Keeman Ajarko. That's a really fun fight at 154 that we've been waiting for a long time to happen. You also have on there Tyrone McCann versus Dylan Moran 2. A rematch that I'm not sure if we really need, but the first fight was very fun for all 2 rounds it lasted. And McKenna, I guess, wants to have another come down fight after the Harlem Eubank loss. Pat Brown returns. It's good they're going to get him into Ireland. Molly McCann makes her matchroom debut. I'm very much excited to see what she looks like. And then Aaron Bowen will be on this show as well, which makes sense. And so it's a really, really fun card. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I mean, I think that Crocker Donovan 2 is going to be awesome. And for a world title, it's maybe the biggest Irish fight ever. And so it's going to be very, very loud in that stadium and a lot of fun. So it's going to be great. It's going to be adding up to be a very, very cool night of boxing, weekend of boxing on September 13th. Fights in general, you've got Yoel Romero making his BKFC debut that Friday. Then on Saturday, you got Crocker Donovan 2, UFC Noche, and Canelo versus Crawford on Netflix. Sunday morning, you're going to get Naoya Inoue versus MJ Ankalaev. That's building up to be another July 19th, and I'm very much excited for it. While I'm on the Matchroom page here, it was announced that Skye Nicholson is going to be making her return on August 23rd on this Jake Wiley versus Yusuf Dib undercard. She's going to be fighting Urvashi Singh, who I'm not really familiar with, and this is a fight that I definitely think that she'll win. And once she does this, she's kind of established herself in the 122-pound division, and then we can move on back to another world title, potentially against Ellie Scottney. So I'm very much cool with the plan. I'm a little bit surprised that she's on the undercard of this, and I don't really know why Wiley vs. Dib is headlining its own event. I kind of think that I'd rather see Skye Nicholson as the main event there, but who knows? That should be a decent fight. But yeah, cool to see that she'll be back out soon. Manny Pacquiao is looking to make a return in November against either Tank Davis or Rolly Romero. I'll tell you right now, the Tank Davis fight is not happening. As for Rolly Romero, I think that's possible. It's either going to be Rolly or the Mario Barrios rematch. They may decide that they want to go a different route. Rolly Romero is a much bigger name now after the Ryan Garcia fight, and I kind of feel like after watching that, we all feel like Pac-Man is better than Barrios, even though it was a draw. So I think that there's potential we could see a rematch there just so Pac-Man gets the win that he deserves. But as for Rolly, I think that that's a bigger money fight and a more enticing one for the fans. So I could see them doing either, and I think that either Rolly or Barrios would take it. Pacquiao's just a madman for going this old. Crawford is now ranked number 1 with the WBO at 168 pounds, and he's no longer interim super welterweight champion. That was always dumb to me how they had him as the interim WBO champion. That was just the WBO trying to get sanctioning fees, and he had no right to become interim champion there. That was just always stupid, but it is interesting that they installed him as number 1 challenger at super middleweight. It's whatever. Misfits Boxing have held their press conference for the 22nd event. That's going to be on August 30th between Darren Till and Luke Rockhold, as well as Saul Poppy and Tony Ferguson. Joey Essex and Numero were there as well. We didn't have Dylan Danis and Norm Spencer, but the press conference was very fun in itself. Till and Rockhold were hilarious. They had a great back and forth. Tony Ferguson was very respectful, as was Saul Poppy. But also they announced that Wade is going to be coming back and commentating, which 2 years ago, if you follow YouTube boxing, that was a huge story because he made a video where essentially, I'm pretty sure he said that this is again 2 years ago, right after the first Jake Paul, or the only now Jake Paul Tommy Fury fight, and he had said that he's not sure if a rematch for that does more pay-per-view buys in his bigger fight than a KSI fight, and KSI didn't like that, lost his shit, and they fired him from Misfits from commentating. And then it launched this whole other thing. There's been a huge rivalry ever since, but he's now going to be commentating again. He's got a good relationship with them. He just fought on there. So I love that he's going to be back commentating. He really is good at it. He's been doing the MVP shows. He's been working for the ring, but it's really cool to see him back at home on Misfits. Sean Strickland is indefinitely suspended after his MMA incident where he ran into the cage and punched his essentially one of his teammates got finished, and his opponent started taunting them. So Strickland ran into the cage and like punched that guy in the face and started a whole scrap and stuff. So he's been suspended from fighting for a bit. I'm not sure if it's everywhere or just in Vegas or something, but he can't fight for a while. And instead, he tweeted, "Oh, anybody want to do an exhibition boxing match?" Which I like that he's saying that, and I do feel like Strickland is one of those guys that could be a lot better in boxing, or have a good career there and something like Misfits boxing maybe, just because he is a really good boxer in the UFC. But this is not going to happen. He's just going to wait until he's allowed to fight back in MMA or fight in another UFC event in another country or something, and he'll be back, I'm sure. Kenshiro Taraji Ricardo Sandoval is now going to be on DAZN. Interesting that they've picked that up. Obviously, Matchroom and Golden Boy have fighters on that card, but it's a really solid world title triple header. And now that Top Rank is no longer on ESPN, they're not going to be putting these Japan events onto ESPN, and they won't be having that deal with them because Top Rank had to deal with some of those Japanese promotion companies as well as Eye of the Tiger. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to all of these events now. It seems like DAZN is picking them up. I'm curious what Eye of the Tiger will do, and I'm curious what Top Rank will do. We still don't know what their next deal is going to be and where they'll be at. So hopefully they announce that very soon. But I'm glad DAZN is picking up more of these events, and I'm becoming very confident that DAZN will pick up Inoue versus MJ in September. But I'm just glad I'm going to be able to watch this fight because I was worried about it. Albert Ramirez versus Jerome Pampalone, which is going to be August 8th in Libya for the WBA Interim Light Heavyweight Championship. So this is going to end up being the third world champion that WBA has in one division. Dmitry Bivol is the WBA Super Champion. Benavidez is the WBA Regular Champion. And now we're going to be having the winner of Ramirez versus Pampalone as the interim champion. Listen, I'm glad that Albert Ramirez is getting closer to a world title shot. He's a really solid fighter, but we just don't need to see another interim fighter. It can just be a title eliminator. It doesn't need to be an interim title. It's just so stupid. But I do think that he wins this fight, and I'm very much looking forward to that fight. If it's able to be watched, but if it's not, then I just won't be able to watch it, and that'll suck. But it is what it is. MVP have announced two back-to-back events. We already knew one of them was happening. It was their first fight night with Yankee Oliveira, Angelino Cordova, as well as Ortiz versus Claggett. They've also added to that card Yoenis Tejas versus Abbas Baru. So Baru has been waiting for his title shot for a while. Tejas is the interim champion for a bit now, and he's going to be defending it against Barao in a really solid fight, I think. I do think Tejas wins this, but that's a really awesome fight on that card. You've also got added Stephanie Hahn versus Paulina Angel for the WBA Lightweight Championship, as well as Jasmine Artiga versus Lynn Sandstrom for the WBA Super Flyweight World Championships. You're going to have two women's championships, two interim championships, and another 50-50 140-pound match on this fight night card. So it's at the Crew Royale, but it's definitely a real fight card, and I can't wait for it, man. Like, I love this little fight night idea, and hope that they do a lot more of them. We also know that Nat Dove and Ariel Perez are going to be on the prelims there, and they're usually main card for these prospects events, so they're definitely stepping it up. And speaking of prospects, the night before in the Crew Royale, they have Most Valuable Prospects 14. I thought this was just going to be the undercard for the fight night, and that was it. But no, the fight night's actually stacked. The prospects card is Jan Paul Rivera versus Daniel Bailey, Corey Marksman versus Luis Martinez, Yoelvis Gomez versus Edwin Humane, and then you've got guys like Taylor Jones on there, Elizabeth Oshoba. It's going to be a really awesome 2-day event. We've seen this happen a little bit before. We saw it happen in Japan with some boxing. We saw it happen with BKFC in Dubai. And now we're seeing it with MVP in Orlando. And, man, they're just doing so much like fun stuff in the sport right now. And they're becoming a real player in the promotional game. I mean, this MVP fight night is on a Saturday night. And that's like competing with, like, Golden Boy events and some Matchroom events, like they're really up there now, and it's cool to see. Sky Sports is apparently interested in Wasserman. This is shocking to me because Wasserman has such a poor stable. They've been putting on very mediocre shows on Channel 5. Not many fights on them at all. You'll have like one okay fighter in the main event against a scrub fighter, and then a ton of prospects on the undercard, and not even good prospects, most of them. But apparently Sky Sports really needs somebody on their boxing. Queensberry's on his own. Matchroom's on his own. GBM is on his own. You've got, who else? Misfits is on his own even. And Boxer, they just got out of the deal with. So they're looking for someone new, and Wasserman is there. Obviously, Wasserman's going to get a lot more money invested into them, and that way they'll be able to get more signings, besides from just Conlon and Eubank and Kelly. They can kind of build out their stable more. Because even Wasserman has some decent fighters like Abbas Baru or Charlie Edwards or Lee McGregor, who are good, but they just end up getting pushed on to other fight cards, and we don't really see them, because they get better offers to fight on other promotions. And Wasserman still promotes them, but it's not on a Wasserman show. With this, if Sky's able to get into them, Wasserman can become a real player in the UK scene again, and I'd like to see that if it happens. Lastly, BKFC has announced a October 4th card in New Jersey, their New Jersey debut. I'm sure that one's going to be a lot of fun and very crazy. And yeah, BKFC is making a lot of fun moves recently. And yeah, that's all I've got for today. Big episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next episode will probably come out Monday, Tuesday time. We'll break down this weekend. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and peace out.